Hey friends all over the world, I want to tell you the shocking truth behind Will Smith, what I call the great shaking. I was going to make this video actually yesterday. I was going to make this video last night when I came back from our meeting, but I wasn't able to. I was distracted with other things. But I'm glad I waited because there is something that I realized, something that was revealed to me during that period of waiting, and I want to share it with you, and I hope you'll get this. Sometimes when we are made aware of cultural phenoms or events, whether it be something happening in politics, something happening in economics, something happening in the culture, a lot of times these are harbingers. These are what I call harbingers, or signs or omens that speak to something greater. And I want you to catch this. I want to tell you the shocking truth behind Will Smith and the great shaking and how these two things relate. So many of you know that during the Oscars, Will Smith, who was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor for the movie King Richard, which was the story of Venus and Serena Williams' father, before his nomination, and of course he won the Academy Award. I'm going to show you how that connects too. But Chris Rock, who is a very popular comedian, and we know he's brash, he can be vulgar at times, very sarcastic, and this is how Chris Rock has made his money. He's made his money off of at the expense of other people, telling jokes and saying everything. And this particular night, he made reference to Jada Smith and her bald head and her green dress, and he talked about her being the next G.I. Jane, which is a movie about, I believe it's Demi Moore plays a Marine who's a woman. She's bald, she shaves her head bald, and so it was an ode to the movie G.I. Jane, and he says, Jada Smith will play the next G.I. Jane. Will Smith gets up from his seat and he slaps Chris Rock. He literally slapped Chris Rock. And he said, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. Of course, used some pejorative statements, some very profane statements in that thing that he said. But I want to show you something. Some believe it's staged, some believe it was real. But I believe this was a prophetic moment. And I believe that and notice what happens when Chris Rock, when Chris Rock gets slapped. When he gets slapped, he is shaken. And that wasn't fake, that was real. His shaking was real. It was almost like he experienced a disruption, and he could no longer think, he could no longer process. The witty comedian and the sarcastic comedian became very sober in an instant. And so he slaps him, and watch this, and Chris Rock can no longer think straight. He's disoriented. He's disoriented. He's discombobulated. He's a bit shaky. He starts to slur his words and mix up stuff. Again, some people think it was staged, but let's say it was real, because the slap was real and his reaction was real. But watch this. God has been dealing with me about the shaking of the church. Now, the Oscars is a secular thing. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a bunch of actors and elites getting together and rewarding each other and awarding each other. And I understand that many of you don't care. But the Oscars represents the epitome of Hollywood, the epitome of culture, the epitome of media, the media mountain, if you will. And I want to prophesy this and speak into this, because God is shaking the mountain of media. He is slapping, listen to this, he is slapping that mountain and the church into shock. See, because what happens with us, if you look at the pandemic, look at everything that happened, the church was slapped out of its sleep. It was slapped and shocked. It was what we call a social interruption. The pandemic, the scamdemic, was a social interruption that God did not necessarily create, but He used. He used this opportunity to get the church's attention and to warn the church and to say, listen, the church was not prepared for what was coming because the church was lazy, was apathetic, the church was self-centered and narcissistic, and because of that, and I say the church, I'm not talking about Jesus Christ, His body, I'm talking about our Western expression of the church. And so watch this, literally the church was slapped. The church was slapped, watch this, slapped out of its normal practices, slapped out of its normal ideology, slapped out of its apathy. People weren't even going to church half the time, and then when the church closed down, folks had to pray that the church would open again, and so they could get back into the house of God. And so there is coming a shaking to the body of Christ. God is shaking our denominations. He's shaking our church culture. He's shaking everything, literally. And it's interesting because now I'm not condoning the slap. I don't believe I don't believe that what he did was right. I don't believe it was professional. I don't believe he exhibited self-control. But I'm talking about harbingers. I'm talking about harbingers. You're talking about a very esteemed actor acting out of character. We've never seen Will do this before. Well, he did slap a man one time who kissed him, but we've never seen him behave like this before. We've never seen Will Smith behave like this before. And so I believe that this is an example of what I call social interruption. Social interruption. You can, whether you believe it was staged or not, it got your attention. It got your attention. And this is an example of the shaking that's coming. When God slaps the church, when He slaps us out of our sleep, when He slaps us out of our normal way of doing things, He is getting our attention. And I'm telling you, it's time for us to wake up. It's time for us to stop going business as usual. And you might not say, you say, what does it have to do with the church? Will Smith don't have nothing to do with the church. Let me tell you something. It doesn't matter whether you like him or not, or whether he's churched or not. But notice what he says in his speech. He says, God is calling me. Now again, I'm not saying he's a Christian or he loves the Lord or anything like that. But we're talking about harbingers. You remember in the scriptures when Jesus, when the high priest says, in the malice, he says, why should we all die? How come this man shouldn't die for us? And he was talking about the Roman Empire. That Jesus, if they didn't kill Jesus, that the Roman Empire would believe that the Jewish people were insinuating an insurrection against Rome. And he said, instead of us all being wiped out, why shouldn't one man die for the whole nation? But he didn't realize he was prophesying. Even though he was not a believer, because of his position, because of his office, God worked through his words to prophesy that the Messiah of Israel would die for the whole nation to redeem Israel. Now I want you to think about this. Sometimes God speaks through harbingers. You gotta catch this. If you ever read Jonathan Cahn's book, The Harbinger, he talks a little bit about this. But a harbinger is just a sign. It's something in the culture, something that happens that is meant to have a deeper meaning if you look into it. that is meant to have an insinuation inside of it.